The camels figure visually in most manger scenes, but I bet you never asked yourself what they were thinking about the whole business, or what gifts they might have brought. Turns out that their gifts are just the gifts we need to manage the darkness, and we need them just as much as did the babe in the manger.
Of course, they never consulted us. They were wise men, kings, star readers, and we merely transportation. They simply loaded us with gifts and turned us toward the star.
I ask you, what would a king know of choosing presents for a child? Had they ever even seen a baby born to such simple folks, so naked of pretension, so open to the wind?
What would such a child care for perfumes and gold? Far better to have asked one born in the desert, tested by wind and sand.
We saw what he would need, the gift of perseverance, of continuing on the hard way, making do with what there is, living on what you have inside.
The gift of holding up under a burden, of lifting another with grace, of kneeling to accept the weight of what you must bear.
Our footsteps could have rocked him with the rhythm of the road, shown him comfort in a harsh land, the dignity of continually moving forward.
But the wise men were not wise enough to ask. They simply left their trinkets and admired the rustic view. Before we knew it, we were turned again toward home, carrying men only half willing to be amazed.
But never mind, we saw the baby, felt him reach for the bright tassels of our gear. We desert amblers have our ways of seeing what you chatterers must miss.
That child at heart knows something about following a star. Our gifts are given. Have no doubt his life will bear the print of who we are.
The public commercial face of Christmas is, to put it bluntly, the face of the brightness which encourages consumption. The holly jolly, buy lots of gifts and drink lots of alcohol and see all your relatives and hoop it up with the children side of Christmas. I'm not knocking it. There is a time and place for everything. But our lives are the poorer if we only honor that side of the season. For one thing, we just end up exhausted. The poet W.H. Auden, in his last piece of his epic poem, The Christmas Oratorio, put it very well. There are enough leftovers to do warmed up for the rest of the week. Not that we have much appetite, having drunk such a lot, stayed up so late, attempted quite unsuccessfully to love all our relatives, and in general, grossly overestimated our powers. The bright side of Christmas, like everything, can be taken to an extreme, and it's not always appropriate to our life circumstances. Sometimes when the calendar rolls around to the darkest time of the year, we've got other things going on. We're not feeling up to the challenges of extroverted celebrations. Maybe it's been a bad year. Maybe we're grieving, or we've become ill or depressed, or our family may be in disarray. In years like that, the general culture of fervor seems like pressure and madness, not comfort and joy. But there's more than one way to celebrate a season. Of course we can celebrate the light, but we can also bless the darkness. Eastern wisdom reminds us that light and dark, noisy and quiet, yin and yang are complementary rather than warring. And not only that, but each exists within the other, like the yin-yang symbol over there by the piano. The dark and light sides are not at war. They are eternally a part of the wholeness of things. Nor are they pure. There is a splash of light in the dark and a spot of dark in the light. They curl around each other, incorporate each other, dance a dance of balance and wholeness, and so should we. There's nothing wrong with the holly jolly Christmas. It's just incomplete. On the other side of the circle is the wisdom of darkness. Celtic paganism, more tied directly to the cycles of nature, is much more able to celebrate the wisdom of darkness than those faiths which assume that the basic story of reality is the story of an epic battle between good and evil, God and devil, light and dark. That is, Christianity, most parts of Judaism, Zoroastrianism, and Islam, just to name the largest. For the Celts, the basic story of the world is that the seasons go round and round, like the wreath, which has been a treasured symbol of the cycle of light and dark, life and death. The wreath remains a common decoration at this time of year. It reminds us of the wholeness of life and the fact that life, greenness, exists even in the depths of winter cold. So even if you don't have the heart or the desire to have a tree in your home, you might consider enjoying a wreath and letting it remind you that all things come and go. Pagans and other nature-centered faiths tend to focus on seasonal markers of sun and moon, and the winter solstice is perhaps the most important. This year's solstice was last Friday, and it's a little too soon to see with the naked eye, but the sun, which has risen a little later and set a little earlier every day for the last 6 months as it traveled southwards on the horizon, has seemed to now halt there for a few days. That's what solstice means. The sun stays. By Tuesday, an observant viewer will be able to see that it is returning northwards to longer days. And that's the reason December 25th has been a special day since long before the babe was born in the manger. But it's a slow path to spring, and that path may travel through lengthening days, but it also travels through the coldest time of the year, the time when indoors and inwardness and staying close to the furnace, if not the fire, seems prudent. As soon as all this holiday madness is over, we can say to ourselves, we can just rest for a time in the darkness, which is still upon us, and the cold, which, as you know, will be only getting colder for another 6 weeks or so. It takes the returning sun some time to make a difference, even in our bright climate. Once upon a time, this sort of winter rest was enforced. Before artificial lights and heat, the day was reduced by half in the wintertime. The working day was reduced by half, and long winter evenings were spent in storytelling or just sleep. Since if you were not working or in bed, you were likely to be cold, you did the things that needed to be done while the light lasted, ate what little there was to eat, and retired to conversation, contemplation, or dreams, all of which bring new ideas, images, and often a sense of peacefulness into our lives. Summer was the time of work never done and the energy that comes from adequate nutrition. Winter was for rest and dreams. Such was the rhythm of life, at least in northern climes, for thousands of generations. It's only lately that we've been using our mechanical genius to even out the seasons and assume that we should accomplish just as much, if not more, in the winter as in the summer. And in this, we go deeply against our nature. Many species of animals, and particularly of plants, require seasonal rest for their well-being. If there's not enough cold, the apple trees will not bear fruit the next year. Many seeds will not germinate. Some animals will not hibernate and therefore will be hungry. Human beings don't suffer so obviously for not taking a season of rest, although we do suffer extremely if our daily cycle of rest is interrupted. One of the easiest ways to break a person's spirit is to deprive them of sleep. Deprive them of any opportunity to dream, and you can literally drive them crazy. We need our rest and our restful times. A few years back, I saved a note from a minister friend whose child at the time was a few months old. She wrote that her son was attracted to light in all its form, and that he stared at bright windows and cooed when a lamp was turned on. She felt blessed by his reminder of the beauty of light. And of course, like most babies, he was fascinated with the Christmas tree. But she went on, "My hope is that he will become to befriend the darkness as well, that he will greet with calm the inevitable times of non-light which life offers, that he will know that the long nights of winter are a preparation for the lighter side of growth." Her parting seasonal wish was that her friends might enjoy the light, but practice non-resistance to the teachings of darkness. The teachings of darkness. What are the teachings of darkness that we could take to heart for a moment at the solstice or in a season after the holidays? I invite you to ponder with me the lessons of darkness and relate to them in meditation to your own lives. They begin with what nature tells us. We need rest. We don't always have to be doing and growing. Indeed, it's not good for us. It's okay to rest. The field left fallow is all the more fertile the next year. Burn yourself out, and you're no good to anybody. You are loved just the way you are. Rest is good, healthy, a part of nature's plan. Daily rest, weekly rest, seasonal rest. Darkness is necessary for that rest. Science now tells us that light pollution is a health hazard, that most people cannot get their bedrooms dark enough for restful sleep and deep sleep, and that is a part of the epidemics of depression and obesity which are a part of our modern world. We are made for periodic darkness and periodic rest. The second lesson of darkness is that although the outside world can threaten us, much of what threatens us comes from within. Our fear of wild beasts is greater than the wildest beast there ever was. Our fear of death too often haunts our lives and then falls away as death actually approaches. Our fear of being alone is almost always worse than any real solitude. When we can face our fears in the darkness, we can lead richer, fuller lives. Third lesson of the darkness is this, that nothing, not even light and warmth, is good all the time. This is the lesson of the yin-yang. All things in balance, all things in their place. Our lives will have their time of darkness, and that darkness is okay. Times of darkness and difficulty, grief and illness come to everyone, and as a part of all that is our lives. They are hard in part because they are the winter times of the spirit, when all things seem dead. We have to get out those wreaths and remember not only that the seasons turn, but that in the frozen ground, unseen but still present, are the seeds of next year's growth, a different kind of happiness, and a new purpose in our lives. The fourth lesson of darkness is that there are a set of qualities which we need for our lives, which we can't develop in the summery seasons of the year, when we are well fed and our work is going well and our mood is sunny. Camel qualities, I think of them, the ones we develop in and for life's harder, colder journeys. Remember the poem. The camels who think the king's gifts were superfluous say, we saw what he would need, the gift of perseverance, of continuing the hard way, of making do with what there is, of living with what you have inside. We need these qualities because it isn't summer all the time, and some journeys are harder than others, and harder than is easy, and we just have to keep going because there's no alternative. We have to tend to business after a death in the family. We keep going to chemo. We return to school after a horrible tragedy, worried, grieved, angry, but present. When there's not quite enough, we make do and call it plenty. That's a virtue. Keeping on. Keeping on. The camels go on to suggest more of the special virtues of camelhood, the gifts they would have brought to the child if it had been up to them, qualities he will need for the extraordinary life foretold to him, qualities we all need. The gift of holding up under a burden, of lifting another with grace, of kneeling to accept the weight that you must bear. These are qualities we mostly develop under protest. In the years in which we don't feel like a success, when parenting is harder than we had ever imagined it would be, when relationships go awry, when we are laid low by grief. Perseverance, poise under pressure, strength we didn't know we had, and when spring comes again in our lives, we tell us that while we hope that we never have to go through that again, something good came of it. We've grown. We discover, after a winter season, a tougher skin, a more tender heart. We're ready to branch out in new ways and move into a new season. We end up often reluctantly blessing the darkness for the time it gave us to cycle around into life again. So if this year has been a hard one for you and you are not feeling the holly jolly Christmas, don't make it harder by beating up on yourself. Get a wreath to remind you that all things cycle around. Put out the camels from the manger scene to honor the virtues of carrying life's load, and light a candle to keep company in the dark, and blow it out before you go to sleep. And if you are fully in the Christmas spirit, living this season in life and love and the possibilities of all things new, enjoy it for what it is. Remember the wisdom of the wreath, and don't forget to take a restful breather at this, the darkest time of the year.